This episode of the 12 Hike Podcast is brought to you by Leland Lures and their revolutionary Trout Magnet. The Trout Magnet has been catching more trout than any other lure for over 20 years. Don't believe me? Field & Stream has listed the Trout Magnet as one of their must-have trout lures and one of the top 50 lures of all time. They work, plain and simple. Rig them on ultralight tackle with 2-pound test and a small float, and you will instantly turn into a master angler. It is also a great lure to introduce your children to fishing, because they catch fish no matter where you are. You can find the Trout Magnet, Crappie Magnet, and other Leland Lure products at Walmart or order directly from their website, troutmagnet.com. The 12 Hike Podcast is going to be doing a Trout Magnet lure giveaway soon, so stay tuned and keep getting outdoors. Welcome to the 12 Hike Podcast, where we talk about all the ways you can get outside. My name is Zach, and thanks for listening. Today's guest is the creator and owner of Leland Lures, makers of the Trout Magnet. We spend a little bit of time talking about what makes his lure so effective, how he came up with it, and what fishing means to him. It was a good conversation. He's very knowledgeable and is worth your time taking a listen just so you can figure out how to use one of the most unique lures I've ever seen. You can find them on Facebook at Trout Magnet. Their lures are found all over major retailers like Walmart, and they've also got a YouTube channel that features tutorials and tips for how to use their product. There's Jeff.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Good.
So it's going to be myself,
Okay.
and then Sean. He's my co-host.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, give me a second.
Yeah, take your time.
Now I got my sound back up where I can hear you. I'm going to try to get a pair of earbuds in, but okay.
We were just talking about all the current events going on anyway.
Gotcha. There's a lot going on. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, that's what we came to realize after talking for just a few minutes.
Yeah.
If you can hear me fine, I can hear you fine. I'm not going to put these earbuds in. I think it'll just cause me headaches.
Okay, yeah. There's no, usually the biggest problem without earbuds is the echo,
Okay.
but I'm not getting that with your laptop,
good.
so you're good.
Good deal. Great.
So I was watching a little promo video on Trout Magnet.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of background of the company.
Well, the Trout Magnet, it's kind of become a following over the past several years. We've been in business now for right at 25 years. And now it's become, the largest retailer in the world. They're number one selling trout lure, across all states. We sell it all across the country and, all over the world, really. And it's a really weird bait. We make about 1,000 different lures, 1,000 different products, I should say. Let me back up. Some of those are the same lures in different colors. But we make a lot of different products. But the Trout Magnet is unbelievable. There's something about it. If you look at all the magazines it's written about, it was one of the top lures of all time. Field & Stream listed it in the top 50 lures of all time back several years ago. And it's just got that following because when you see it work or if you fish with it, you go, it can't be what I just saw. It just can't be that easy in this bait that looks like it's so simple. But basically what happened was back in the early 90s, got out of college and I was fishing with one of my friends from West Virginia. And we could fish with anybody. We could catch fish. We knew all the tricks, but it was just like we were missing something. So we started tying jigs and making jigs, and we would do it a little bit better than everybody else. But it wasn't until we had the Gainers, Todd Gainer, the company's named after him, Leland. I named it Leland. Jeff's lures didn't sound very good. And so it was for their family just coming up with a jig that was basically made for brim and then altering it to get something that was longer and more what we needed for trout. But when we started using it, we would outfish everybody wherever we went. It was not even funny. I'd step up between 20 people and outfish all of them, not just one of them, but all of them, every time we went. So it got to be, for a long time, people would call us and bother us to try to buy it. And we're like, no, to be honest with you, we enjoyed outfishing everybody at the time, not even thinking about having a business. And so it basically started in my garage. And when, we started making it more and more colors, it got even more and more successful. And that's basically how it started. I was fishing with a guy one day and There's a guy directly across the stream from us, about 20, 30 feet across. And this happened, I can't tell you how many hundreds of times it happened. We would be fishing, and the guy would go, "Hey, what are you using over there?" Because we'd be catching them really fast. And we'd go, "It's a jig that I make." I didn't have a name for it. And it's just a jig that I make. And we kept catching them. And the fish were directly between us. And, we're about 30 feet apart, so the fish are just 15. They're right there in front of us. So we're catching them. He's not. What kind of jig is it? Well, it's just a small jig. And so he got stuff out just like they always do, because you think a jig is a jig. And it doesn't look like anything different. But the problem is, and we didn't know this at the time, that most jigs would fall head weighting too fast, where ours was falling completely flat, which, according to a lot of the magazines that write about it, no other jig in the market will do that without a special knot or tying a certain way. So anyways, this guy's fishing across from us, and I had a friend with me, and the guy goes, "It's a magnet. It's a trout magnet." And I was like, "That's kind of funny." So then we just kind of jokingly started calling it the trout magnet, but it stuck, and then years later, when we decided to sell it, it was pretty easy to have a name, because it kind of had a name going along with it the whole time.
So did you grow up in West Virginia?
I grew up in Pennsylvania, around the Pittsburgh area. So just, about an hour from where I was living at the time, not very far, but I grew up in that area. Yeah. And so it was, it was a very much a April and May type fishery up there, because they stock trout and there's a season for them in Pennsylvania. So trout fishing was always a spring type deal, and it was pretty much over and done. Until we started making the trout magnet, then we started using that trout magnet for brim and smallmouth and, you name it, everything with that little thing.
So the thing that's been snagging me up, I've used a trout magnet. I like it. It's a good lure. It works. What is that thing supposed to look like? Because it doesn't look like anything.
You betcha. I can't tell you how many times I've had that conversation too. Two times stick out of my brain that when somebody said something, excuse me, that made sense to me. And this was Pennsylvania, before I started selling the trout magnet. I went to a opening day trout season that they had up there, and we all lined up elbow to elbow, and there's a bunch of trout out there. And at the time, I think the limit was 7. I think it was 7. And I had some of my uncles and my dad. We were all around there. We're getting ready for the 8 o'clock, I think, is when it opens up and you start casting. Well, I'm sitting beside this guy that I didn't know, and he was using minnows. And he goes, "I bet you that looks like a minnow," because at the time I could only make white. And so I was like, "Yeah, as I twitch it in the water, it kind of looks like a little minnow, because if you jig it, it doesn't work that well." And here's what I would say about the trout magnet too, as I tell you this story: if you fish it correctly, it's unbelievable. It just crushes everything. If you fish it wrong, it still works a lot of times, but doesn't work like I'm talking about it. And a lot of it takes equipment, light line, and just a little bit of presentation. But I'm fishing with this guy, beside this guy, and he starts fishing his minnows. I think I caught it was close to 50. I was just catching them and letting them go, which didn't make a lot of people around me happy, because they were trying to just catch 7. The guy with minnows never got to 7. And he was fishing light tackle and fishing it pretty well from what I could tell. And so he's like, "Man, it doesn't look like a minnow." A couple guys down goes, "Well, I'm looking at fishing a mealworm, and I didn't catch my limit either." And it looks a little bit like a mealworm. So, that sticks out of my brain. If it looked like those things would do as well. At least that's the theory, right? And so basically, it doesn't look like them, because it would have done the same. That's the first thing that stands out. The second thing stands out. I was filming a TV show with the country music group Diamond Rio, the lead singer. I think Marty Rose, his name. And the first day, we fished and caught 100, 150 rainbows out of my boat down here in Arkansas. Well, the next day they were going to go to Cal Shoals, which was a really famous, area on our river, because that's where they put the eggs in the 60s for brown trout. And now every brown trout returns there in the fall to spawn. And the brown trout are real wild. They're not as easy to catch as rainbows. So the next day, a fly fisherman took Marty, and I was there with the film crew, and was fishing for these brown trout. And they were turning over rocks and look at the sow bugs, and they matched the sow bug, and they caught 4 trout all morning long. It rained. It wasn't real nice of a morning, but we broke for lunch, and Marty goes, "Hey, Jeff, why did we catch so many rainbows yesterday and the browns are hard?" I said, "Well, it's because the rainbows are a little easier to catch. A lot of them are stocked, and these browns are wilder fish, and so they're harder to catch." But then the guy that was fly fishing with us at the time, I didn't know, and now he's become a really close friend. He said, "Yeah, the trout magnet won't work as well for those brown trout as it will for the rainbows. And I'm like, well, you're right about that, but I still catch a lot of fish in the catch a lot of brown trout on this Trout Magnet. He goes, but it doesn't look like anything we're fishing with. Well, here, that comment, I was like, yeah, I said, I think I could catch 4 pretty quick. He's like, no, you couldn't, because we're right there in that water where it's getting hammered by a bunch of fly fishermen, and they are harder to catch. I caught 4 brown trout on 4 casts on a pink Trout Magnet. And I'll never forget the fly fisherman going, I can't believe what I just saw. It doesn't make any sense. This wild fish has never seen a pink lure or a pink anything in his life. Why is he eating it? And I can't answer that question, right? But one of them said, what if you ate broccoli your whole life and somebody put a pizza in front of you? Would you take a bite just to try it? I'm like, yeah, I probably would. So those 2 stories kind of always stick out to me. It might not represent anything, but it might be something that is so unique to them that they like it. Only thing I can say is this. I'll say this, and then I'll let you ask questions about it, because I might be talking about something you don't want to hear about. But I do notice that the way it falls in the water completely alters the way a trout reacts to it. And so that natural flat fall, it's a neutral buoyancy. It doesn't sink real fast. It doesn't float. But that natural fall makes it look like a natural food source to them, whether it's in a stream or in still water. There's something about it that really just fires them up and gets them going.
My wife would attribute that 100% to the pink collar.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, she's a little disappointed because she wants a pink lure with glitter in it. So get on that.
I think I might already have that already, to be honest with you.
I was looking through the catalog and didn't see it.
Yeah, well, I've got one. You need to text me later, because it was a mistake, but I've kept it. So I've got one.
Well, it's so funny because I live in Colorado now.
Okay.
And, trout fishing out here is a big deal.
You bet.
The first time we ever came out, I was fly fishing. I was one of those guys who's like, okay, this is like a river runs through it. I'm going to come out here. I'm going to kill a big trout. It's going to be awesome. So I all day long, flinging this fly rod. I got 1 rise out of a trout, and that was it. My wife was tired. She wanted to take a break, so we parked the car. She takes a nap, and I sneak her little Zebco ultralight rod out of the back of the car, and I look around, make sure no one sees me, and I dip down over into the creek. And she's got a little Trout Magnet on there. I'm like, I feel real bad, but I'm going to do this because I'm going to try to catch a fish.
Yeah.
The first cast, this trout came out of nowhere and hammered it. And I was blown away. I was like, this is crazy, because, conventional wisdom about trout fishing is all match the hatch, super stealthy, be quiet. They're a sneaky fish. They're real timid. Nope. Bobber and a Trout Magnet. Poop.
It doesn't make any sense, does it? It's so bizarre. And I tell you, a lot of people go, well, that hit anything right there. That hit other stuff. Well, they might have, but I've fished for 25 years now. I've fished thousands upon thousands of days. I really have. It's just, it's just a blessing I get to do it. But I never see anything else outfish it, ever. The only time it doesn't work real well is when the water's real high and fast. That neutral buoyancy gets blown away because the current pushes it too fast. But it is nuts. I can't explain what they think it is. Whatever it is, they will attack that thing. It's so bizarre.
And as far as the body of that lure, I mean, it's got a little split tail. Yeah. Did you guys ever mess around with just making it a solid body, or is there something about that split tail?
You bet. I mean, it might sound really weird, but there's a lot that goes into that lure. It really is. And the split tail is a big part of it. It helps the way it falls, and it actually opens a little bit more than what you would think in the water. If you see it over top or underneath it, it opens up and almost claps as it falls, or will stay open. And that is a huge deal. When you make that thing straight, we make a trout worm, and a lot of people pinch off a trout worm and put it on that jig hook, and they'll catch some, but it's nothing like that Trout Magnet will do. Not even close.
Now, do you find that there's a little bit of animosity between, your typical spin tackle fishermen using trout magnets versus the fly fishermen?
Yeah, you do. And it's really sad too, because, we all started somewhere fishing, and a fly fisherman sometimes will look down on spin casters, and I really don't like that. And I try to be a hybrid, to be honest with you, between the two. And we're proud of the fact that we'll have even, There's a couple guides here in our river that are fly guides. One of the Orvis guides uses our guide service when somebody doesn't want to